Hi everyone, Cindy here from CreativeSynchronicity.com, and I'm back again with another crafty hangout. This time we are featuring products from Duck Brand Duct Tape. And when I first saw the products that they sent me, the first thing I saw was the red, white, and black, and that immediately made me think of Nutcracker Soldiers. I've been collecting Nutcracker Soldiers since I was quite little, and was always really fascinated with the ballet, and it's become something that's pretty sentimental in our family. So it was kind of a natural thing to do. I've made Nutcracker Soldiers when I was a teacher with my grades 7 and 8 students. We used to make them out of paper or felt. Usually construction paper was all we could afford because we already had it on hand. But this would be a really, really simple project for older kids to do with the duct tape. Don't need any glue. It's a lot easier to manage than trying to, get the paper on there and wait for the glue to dry and all of that, because you're doing it with something that's already self-adhesive. So I'm going to show you what I did to make this. And basically, let me just show you, because I haven't finished off the back of this one yet. This was a container of dishwasher detergent. So any kind of cylinder will work. A coffee can would work great. I'm actually going to be working today on this can, which, believe it or not, was what my very first cell phone that I ever owned came in. So there's lots and lots of opportunities. I'm making them a bigger size, but you could certainly even just save, spaghetti sauce cans and things like that and work in a smaller scale for those. They could easily be used for all kinds of things, like, you could put the battery operated little tea lights in them to make sort of luminaries out of them. The bigger containers, if they're food safe, you could put cookies in them to give to your neighbors. If they don't have a lid, or take the lid off, you could display a poinsettia in them, or use them to hold your Christmas cards. All kinds of things that you can do with them. So let's get started. One thing I want to point out to you is that basically, other than the decorations that are on top of this, which are easy enough to do as well, you're working stripes. So that's one of the things that makes this project so easy to do, especially with kids. The boots are a stripe. The pants, another stripe. Jacket, another stripe. Face, another stripe. His hat and then the trim on his hat are another stripe. His belt is another stripe. So it's pretty easy to get the basics put on here, and then you can just play around with decorating it. Let me move that out of the way. I want to give you a quick glance of some of the products that I was sent. Duck Brand Duct Tape has all of these different, just sort of plain colors for all kinds of uses. And of course, I already showed you that they also can come in the sheets as well. And the sheets are really handy for some of the things like his mustache, and some of those details work really, really well with the sheets. Sheets would also be really great if you're doing like a smaller scale one, because they've got the lines on the back. So it's easy to measure out exactly how much you need and cut that and then put that onto the smaller size ones. There's these really pretty metallic tapes. You saw some of these on the Nutcracker sample that I showed you. These are metallic as well, but they've got this really nice sparkly look to them, and I apologize that the camera is not picking them up very well. Those sparkles throw the camera off every time. And then they also sent me some really pretty patterns. They've got all kinds of different seasonal patterns. So, for all kinds of other projects, these would be really, really great ones to look for. So let's get started. So I've got this can here that I'm going to start covering. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the face. It doesn't really matter exactly where you start, but I just found it easier to kind of get the face lined up where I wanted it to be and then build out from there. So I'm using just plain old white duct tape for the face. A tan would work great for this. You know, a pink kind of color would work really well for this. There's all kinds of different colors that you could use, a nice brown, whatever you want to do when it comes to, sorry, I'm just trying to move this down a bit so you can see, when it comes to working with the face. So just take your pick, but they happened to send me white, and it needed to be a color that the facial features, the mustache and all that was going to show up on, and white was the one that worked best for that in what I've got. So I'm just going to start laying this out. Now, normally I found it easiest to kind of hold this as I was working with it, but I want you to be able to see. So I'm kind of propping it here between these rolls of tape so that it doesn't roll around too much. And I mean, as you saw, you know, if I got some bubbles in it or it wasn't laying exactly right, it's easy enough to kind of fix that. Comes back off, you can kind of fix up how it's lining up. All of that works really well. While I'm continuing with this, let me just say, really the only materials you need for this are the tape and a good pair of scissors. I like the Teflon ones so that it won't stick to the tape, and it's a lot easier to get it cut and used. Now, here's one of the problems I encountered. I don't know if you can see that very well with it being white, but it's not really lining up. But again, easy enough to pull it back up and kind of work it around again. If you get bubbles as you go or little wrinkles, just pull it back up and lay it back down again. Okay. So I've got the stripe on there for the face. Now I can build out from there and work on the hat and all the different things like that. So I think I'm going to play around with it a little bit this time and maybe do something a little bit different. I did the fairly traditional looking with the red, added a little bit of a difference to it with the sparkles on it. But I think for this one, because I want it to kind of go along with and not be exact match, but kind of be coordinating, I think I'm going to go with green for this one. So I'm going to start laying down, and it's okay to overlap them. That's part of what makes it so easy when you're working with the stripes, is that, you know, you can overlap the different tapes and then they're going to line up into the stripes that you want. Okay, so there's his hat. Next thing I want is the jacket, and I'm just going to make his jacket match. Actually, I'm not going to do the jacket next. I'm going to do the boots and the pants. I'm going to make his jacket green to match his hat, but you can do whatever you want. I think I'm going to go with the red. I think we'll go with red for the pants. So let me grab these to hold that in place. Okay, so one of the other things that I like to keep on hand, just while I'm getting this package open, because I'm kind of picking my colors as we go today, is I also like to have on hand some wax paper. And one of the reasons why I like to have wax paper on hand is because when you start doing the fine details, if you don't actually have the duct tape sheets to be able to use, another way of doing it is using the wax paper. Sorry, had a little brain fade there for a second. So, okay, so I'm going to use the red for his pants, but I'm going to get the boots put down there first. So I'm just going to cut, and like I said, so easy to work with because you've got the stripes here. So I can kind of measure out exactly how big a strip I want to use for his boots. So I'm going to grab some black. Now, the thing about the size containers that I'm using is that the black is not, anything off of these little sheets is not going to wrap all the way around. So you're going to have to piece it in the back. But, you know, people aren't really going to notice the back anyway, so it's not a big deal. But that is one thing to bear in mind about the size of your container. So let's get some black on there for the boots. Okay, so there's the boots. And now I'm going to get some red here. So like you can see, it's really easy to just, and you know, I'm not being super fussy with measuring these out, but you know, if you were working with, especially with a group of kids, I would probably give them some measurements. If you can work with the full width of the roll of tape, that makes it super easy. You know, anytime you can do what I'm doing right now and not be able to have to do any trimming or measuring or anything of it like that, that sure makes it handy. But if you have to, you can certainly do some measuring out and give the kids the measurements, or like I said again, you could be working with the duct tape sheets. Oops, that wasn't very good. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm going to put his jacket on, and I just like putting his jacket on last because I like for the jacket to be a little bit wider than everything else on there. You know, the boots I made a little bit narrower, the face is a little bit smaller, and then I like the jacket to kind of be a little bit wider. So I just want to make sure that it's going to kind of cover over where this the pants are. I can't seem to work and talk at the same time today for some reason. Okay, so there's that. And I'm not, you'll notice I'm not really checking the back to make sure that it's going all the way around because I will fuss with that later. I don't want you to sit here and watch me fiddle around with the back part. Okay, so I've got a little space here that's not covered. I'm going to need another piece. Now, here's a couple of options that you can do. Okay, so again, if you've got the sheets, you've got those lines on the back of the sheets, you could measure out a piece to fit there. If you don't have that, you can see, like with this gold piece, I've put it on wax paper. Okay, and what the wax paper does is it makes it super easy then to cut. And especially for kids, this is so much easier to cut once it's on the wax paper rather than trying to do it like cutting from directly from a roll of tape or cutting a piece of tape off and then trying to cut through that. And you know, with kids, of course, I mean, even with me, the tape is going to start sticking to itself, and you know, I can work that out, but kids can tend to get frustrated. So this just makes it super easy because you can cut the piece that you want, and you know, then you just peel it back off of the wax paper and you're good to go. One of the things that's really important to remember though is that you leave, you know, some wax paper around so that you're not trying to sit there for half an hour trying to peel it back off. You want a little tab or something around it so that you can peel it off easily. Okay, so for this one, I'm just going to, since I'm working with a roll of tape, I'm actually just going to layer it. Just like that. Okay, so I'm just layering it on. And I'm not going to fuss with trying to get the pieces to perfectly match. Now, if you're concerned about the seam that's there, you may want to layer it on so that your seam lands down here and then you can cover it with the belt. I'm not really concerned because I find the seams don't really show up. I'm not that particular about it. You know, they don't jump out at people. They're not that easily seen. So I'm not going to worry about it. And especially if I'm doing this project with kids, I don't want them to worry about it either. But you can put it in a spot where it's going to be hidden instead and put a belt over it or something like that to be able to make sure that it's not showing if that is a concern for you. Okay, so we've got the basics on here. Now it's pretty much just going around and embellishing it and making it into an actual soldier. So it's a matter of things like if you want to add some trim in any places, if you want to put a belt on here. I like to put like a skinny little stripe down there just to make it clearer that those are pants. You might want to put the stripes across the uniform, his eyes, little mouth, his mustache. Little beard sticking down. I added some holly trim, all of those kinds of things. So like I said, you know, here's wax paper. Let's, I think I'm going to give this to him as some trim on his hat. And again, this piece isn't quite long enough, so I would have to piece it at the back, but I'll fuss with doing that later. Okay, so there's a little bit of trim on his hat. I think this time, instead of the holly, because he's got a green hat and holly's not really going to show up, let's see, what could I do? Maybe just give him, I want to give him some kind of a little something up on his hat. Maybe let's just cut a couple pieces. Oops. I think I mean, it's not really going to look like a snowflake or something like that, but you know, I think it just gives a little accent up on the head part, up on top of his hat. Another thing I want to point out to you is here's the piece that I peeled off when I was making his boots from the sheets, and I save these because they also work in place of the wax paper too. So that gives you another option. And again, you've got that measuring bit on the back. Okay, so let's see, what else shall we do for him? I'm going to grab the red sheet and I'm just going to cut some little shape out here. Now, I will tell you that I think kids would find it really fussy if they really tried to make perfectly round eyes and mouth and that kind of thing. It was, you know, it can be a little bit fussier than maybe you want to do with them. So I'm just kind of going for like sort of a semicircle with the shapes just to make it a bit easier. When it comes to the mustache, you could let the kids design it themselves. I just used a piece of cardboard to make a template, and I fold it in half so that I got both sides of the mustache even, drew on a mustache thing, and then I'm just using that as my pattern. So you could provide templates for them. I always like to have the option with kids of, you know, some kids, they would get so stressed out by the idea of, oh, I have to design a mustache, that it would be really difficult for them to continue with the project. And this was supposed to be a fun activity. You know, this was meant to be a bit of holiday fun. So I didn't want to stress them out. So I provided templates for those who wanted it, but I also encouraged any of them who wanted to go right ahead, design whatever you want. And that goes for the patterns. You know, I mean, to make it look like a soldier, you probably want the basic stripes idea that I've got going here. But I think pretty much anything else goes after that point. Do whatever kind of decorating of it you want. Make whatever kind of face you want. You know, all of that, I think, is where the kids can have a lot of leeway. So here's his mustache. I've given him an awfully small face on this one. I realize that. Probably could have used with a little more space for his face, but that's okay. I'm all right with that. I've got a little scrap here left from his mustache, so I'm going to try giving him some eyes from this. There's one eye. Sorry, just peeling. Just peeling the eye. Just thinking I could probably, see? Flexible, right? You can kind of fix your mistakes and stuff. Let's move this up a little bit. Yeah, that's better. So he has a little more eye space. Let's give him an eye there. Cut another one. Again, you could offer templates. Now the eyes are pretty small though. So honestly, I think it's a heck of a lot easier just to go for it. Just cut. I mean, they could even make him rectangle eyes. It doesn't have to be a certain shape. So whatever is easiest for them to do. Because really, it's just trying to give the suggestion of a face so that people recognize that it's a Nutcracker Soldier. I mean, look at that right there. I mean, they aren't perfectly sized or perfectly shaped eyes, but yet you get the idea now. Like you can tell this is supposed to be a soldier. It's easy to see now that we've got the face on there. So next thing we want is something to decorate his jacket with. I don't think I'm going to do the, you know, on this one, I did kind of the traditional, I don't even know what those are supposed to be called, but those diagonal crisscross kind of things. I think maybe on this, I'm going to do some of these little silver pieces. Going down. These were left over from another project I was working on, so I might as well use them up. And I think that still kind of gives the idea of a jacket right there really easily. And then I just need to distinguish his pants. So again, I'm using the black sheet, and I'm just gonna cut a skinny little stripe there. And let me just kind of measure it against what I need. And clip that off. And then I'm just going to peel it off. And we're pretty much going to be done. I guess I could add a belt. I'm not sure if I'm going to give this guy a belt or not. I don't know. Let me have a look once I get his pants situated. Okay, so there's the stripe. That kind of shows, like, look at that. That even just that little thing makes a big difference in making it look like these are actually pants. You could also put stripes down the sides of his pants, you know, to make them look more like a uniform if you wanted to add something like that. And you could keep playing with this and adding more things, the belt and all of those kinds of things. But I think I'm kind of happy with the way this guy is right now. I kind of like the way these two look side by side. I think they're going to make a really cute display on my mantelpiece. So in a few days, there will be a blog post up where you'll be able to see this video. I'll be sure to give you close-up photos so you can see a little more of the detail that you might not be able to see on screen right now. And if you have any questions, be sure to leave comments there, and I'll get right back to you and answer any questions that I can. I hope you enjoyed this. Happy holidays, and talk to you soon.